Ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats. Good morning to everyone. I hope you enjoyed yesterday when we were meeting each other. Um, Now we start with the official part. This consists of two parts. First, we have the official opening with the president of the Youth Time Movement, Julia Kinash. Then we have a guest from representing the local government today, Albert Royo. Then we have Petra um, Matjakovic, who is a co-founder of Youth Time, and then Isabella Strazinska will also state some greeting words. After this, we have the plenary session, starting with our keynote speakers to the stage.
Pleasure that Youth Time movement makes me feel very proud.
And the rest of Europe is now just starting to overcome a deep economic crisis. The recent data that shows a decrease in unemployment both in Spain and in Catalonia, the global unemployment rate in Spain registered in the third quarter was 21.2%, 17.5% for Catalonia, which allows us to be optimistic regarding the way out of the crisis. Nevertheless, we still have an unacceptable high young unemployment rate. For those aged between 16 and 24, unemployment reached 46.6% at the end of the third quarter in Spain, 40% in Catalonia. This is the biggest challenge that we need to face in the coming months and years. So we will carefully listen to the conclusions of this forum and will take good note of the experiences and proposals made by its participants, by all of you. Catalonia's business-friendly nature, as well as the mentioned challenges, are what convinces me that this is the right place to organize this major event that brings together young people from all over the world to interact in a supportive and creative environment and to work together to find innovative solutions to their most urgent challenges, such as employment and education. It is very important that organizations such as Youth Time foster this kind of debates. Youth Time is an internationally oriented, non-profit, non-political organization which actively represents a platform of dialogue between cultures and generations. It inspires and engages young people from all over the world by encouraging them to develop their social leadership skills as well as to take upon their civil responsibility. Youth Time provides opportunities to take part in various projects to help youth acquire new knowledge and skills in social and public sphere, as well as to build up relations with other young social leaders. As you'll see, our institutions share a very similar mission. The Public Diplomacy Council of Catalonia, Diplocat, is a PPP, a public-private partnership, designed to foster dialogue and build relationships between the citizens of Catalonia and the rest of the world. Our members include the Government of Catalonia, the 4 Catalan provinces, the City Council of Barcelona, the main employers' associations and trade unions in our region, all Catalan chambers of commerce and saving banks, the Confederation of Cooperatives, the Federation of Social Entities, all 12 universities in Catalonia, and even FC Barcelona, which is perhaps our most famous member. We are the public diplomacy arm of the Catalan people, both government and civil society acting together. The Council engages in public diplomacy with national and international audiences, digitally and in person, to create exchanges about Catalan issues as well as world affairs, organizing working visits, academic events, facilitating business networking, and by building capacity in international relations. We seek to contribute to discussions about the main global challenges by promoting the active involvement of Catalan society in the mutual exchange of ideas and best practices in key sectors like government, business, culture, and education, in order to promote a fairer, more peaceful, democratic, and sustainable world. Just to give you some recent examples, the Council has organized, in collaboration with the City Council of Barcelona and with the support of the EU representation in Spain, a seminar on the principle of responsibility to protect, R2P. This principle, as you may know, unanimously approved by the heads of state and government in the General Assembly of the United Nations in the year 2005, states that all countries have the responsibility to protect its population from serious human rights violations. Another example was the international workshop organized by the Council in cooperation with the Open Society Initiative for Europe on the rise of xenophobic and Eurosceptic movements in Europe. The initiative was designed to investigate the correlation between the European economic crisis, how the press informed about it, and the simultaneous rise of xenophobic and Eurosceptic movements around the European Union. And finally, let me also mention the conference Digital Diplomacy, fostering a collaborative engagement. Digital diplomacy is a new communication tool used by governments and in international relations in general that allows a more balanced relationship between citizens and governments. The objective of that conference was to contribute from here, from Catalonia, to the global debate on the use of internet and social networks in the field of diplomacy and public diplomacy. All these examples show the commitment of this Council, of the Public Diplomacy Council, with democracy, human rights, and global governance. We are interested in having people and institutions here in Catalonia contributing to these debates with solid arguments. For all these reasons, we share your motivations and completely support your work. As I said before, we will read carefully the conclusions of this forum and will try to import to our region, to Catalonia, some of the best practices discussed. I wish you a very fruitful debate, and I also wish you a very nice day here in Barcelona. Thank you so much.
Dear Mr. Arroyo, thank you very much for this introduction and the welcoming also from the official side of the government. I would like now to call Petra Matjakovic to the stage, co-founder of the Youth Time movement.
Good morning, dear participants, dear guests. We are delighted to have you here to participate and share in our first Global Youth Forum organized by Youth Time International Movement. On behalf of Youth Time, I would like to thank you for coming. Actually, the fact that many of you traveled long distances serve us all as a reminder how important our work is. This forum is designed to focus on education and employment, as these are recognized as the greatest challenges and opportunities we face today. So during this forum, you will learn and see innovative examples of youth-driven solutions, which we hope will also inspire you and encourage you to try something new. I encourage you all here to participate and engage fully, to make new friendships and connections, and to learn from other participants while sharing your valuable ideas. Make sure that your voice is heard and give us the opportunity to learn from you. So guys, prepare yourself to be challenged, excited and inspired. And once again, on behalf of Youth Time, welcome. It's a pleasure to see so many of you here, and I wish you all success.
Thank you, Petra, very much for bringing in some emotions in the opening speech. The last speaker of the opening session is Isabella Strazinska, Selection Department Manager at IES Consulting. Please welcome to the stage.
Okay. Hello, welcome to everybody here in Barcelona. Bienvenidos. Well, first of all, I would like to thank to all the organizers for inviting us, for organizing this initiative, because from my company point of view, we always work between the education, between the students, and between the employment, the labor market, which we consider as very important part to develop the young people who are coming for the future. So this discussion and the things that we can discover here, I consider as very important. Second thing is that during 10 years of our work, we saw a lot of problems, a lot of movements, a lot of change in the labor market between the students and between the universities. So I'll be very glad to see what solutions we'll find on this forum, what we can bring to that. And also we are very glad to provide one of the prizes, which will be the job coaching and personal paid internship for the best idea to develop the market that my company works with, that you exist in. And well, welcome to Barcelona. I hope to have a good time with all of you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabella, for you addressing the audience here. Now, with this, we have officially opened the session, and we're now coming to the first plenary session, and it is called Challenging Youth Unemployment. Now, let me say a few words about this. Yesterday evening, there was the first networking event. We wanted that you first meet people from your field, where you're studying or where you're working. Meaning, as me in law firms, so some lawyers gained and discussed some topics. There were some civil engineers, there were people from other sectors. And then we asked you to change, to switch to those people who you would like to be or who would you like to work for in future. Now, this is very important because, especially at young age, people are very energized and they have lots of dreams. And now in order to make these dreams, plans and goals, in order to implement them, we have now a series of keynote speakers, and I encourage you to take notes because this is something you might be very useful for you also in future. And they will tell you now not only about the topics, but also a little bit about themselves. And our first keynote speaker is Dimitri Psarakis, and I asked him yesterday, Mr. Psarakis, when you were a child, what or who do you want it to be? And he was smiling a little bit at me. He's smiling right now too. And he said, well, actually, you know, I wanted to be an architect. And I was like, why this? And I said, because everyone wanted to be a lawyer. Everyone wanted to be a doctor, and I wanted to go my own way. So today, Mr. Psarakis is Economic and Monetary Policy Advisor at the European Union, so he went his own way. Before this, he earned his degrees at Harvard University, has more than 10 years of experience in financial institutions, and will now talk to you with the following topic: when market fails, policies for fighting youth unemployment in the EU. Please, welcome to the stage.
Good morning. Being the first speaker, I'd like to thank Julia Kinas for your kind invitation to come here, join you here. Second, I'd like to help to thank Renz and also ask him where is my device. Okay. Good. Well, for the people who may know me, know that I'm not that mainstream economist, and my views do not necessarily reflect the views of the European Union, especially on topics like that. Having said that, I stress that I do not represent necessarily the European Union views, though the youth unemployment problem has necessarily a market viewpoint on behalf of me. The second thing I feel that it's necessary to stress is that economists gradually distance themselves from the real world economic issues. And I have recently read an old speech of a well-known economist, Ronald Coase, who said, if economists would like to study about horses, they would never go to look at horses, but they will theorize about horses, saying, what I would do if I were a horse. I'm afraid that this is pretty much the case in many institutions designing economic policy. And the third thing, before my beginning, is that never trust an economist who starts his presentation with a graph. How it works? Okay. What do we? The green one, okay. A graph. Well, one picture equals 1,000 words. So, you see a success story here. Youth unemployment in the EU. It says today, but the last indicators we have are from August 2013. Things might be a little bit worse right now. Greece is the champion, 61%. Spain follows with 55%, something. And the average of unemployment in the EU overall is about 23%. Well, the interesting thing is that, as this graph shows here, with a remarkable exception of Denmark, Netherlands, Austria, and Germany, in the rest of the European Union, the rate unemployment, the overall rate unemployment, is half of the youth unemployment. And this is also a very interesting point because we have a pattern here. This is econometrically a persistence because it is like that all the time. Before the crisis, during the crisis, after the crisis, it's going to be the same. Youth unemployment is always double than the actual rate of unemployment. And this is a map. Well, in this map, we see that there are some localities, some concentrations. The overall market, the common market of the European Union, has completely different results of success in employing young people. You see that Spain and Greece are the champions, though Germany, Holland, Denmark, Finland are much more successful. The rest of them, with the exception maybe of Italy and Slovakia, have an average result more or less matching the results of the European Union as a whole. Well, this means that the picture shows us it's not necessarily a market failure because in the overall market works differently in different places, and the more well-educated, market-oriented countries have significantly better results from those with other kinds of mentalities, including dysfunctional institutions. One of the reasons why we see this kind of differences has to do with the mentality of the people and how we view things. We are discuss about it later. The economics of the problem. We said that we have a persistence in regards of the econometric indicators. It's not necessarily to be a statistician or to have a background in macroeconomic econometrics to see the pattern. However, I don't necessarily believe that it is a fact of market failure because some issues regarding the way things work have a very strong structural and institutional dimension. In countries like mine, the structural view is very, very different in the way the country, the state is organized than in the most other places. And this causes very big dysfunctions and suboptimal allocation of resources. The second thing has to do with the promise of full employment. This was very well-known story from the past that economy should employ everybody. I'm afraid that it is a dream that we have already, we are already grown to believe that it works like that. First, it is not feasible to have full employment, and if it was feasible, it wasn't necessarily desirable to have full employment. We can discuss it later if you want about it. The other important thing I'd like to stress is that independently of what markets do, there are also macroeconomic considerations that affect markets. We have the collapse of the financial sector. This resulted in the collapse of of every other sector, and this is not something related to the dysfunctionality of the system to provide optimal allocation of resources through the signaling of the price system. Well, we have adverse business cycle. We have inefficient monetary policy. It is very important to stress here that the ECB, the Central Bank of the European Union, contrary to other central banks, has not a mandate to control the unemployment rate. We also have a painful and slow deleveraging process, and most important than all, we have very big demographic shifts. All Europe becomes older, and this may have strong impact on pensions and other social security programs. You need 5 young men to pay 1 old in pension. There is also the social dimension of the problem. Contrary to the popular view, in a liberal economic system, the most important is the efficient function of the market. No, in a liberal economic system, the first and foremost is to have free people, and the second is to have happy people. If you are unemployed, you cannot be happy. In Europe, and when I'm talking about Europe, I speak Europe in its entirety, from Vladivostok to Alaska. We are like that. We believe that the people should grow and use its economic appearance in the market, also in the society, through a decent job. If we have not a decent job, we have social exclusion. Youth unemployment is a source of social exclusion, and this is the very first problem we need to address. And whenever we have a policy in the European Union, addresses not necessarily the employability of the young people, also it reflects the need of social inclusion of the young people. Another big problem we have in the European Union is the mobility. Though it's very easy to go from one place to the other, it's impossible to settle in a place because of the language barriers, the preferences, biases, and things that divide people in terms of cultural distances that, despite the fact that we are a union of about 50 years old, more, we cannot overcome. There is also a dimension regarding the inclusion of young immigrants coming from all over the world. You know the immigration problem we have. Young people coming from different parts of the world. Most of them are coming from agrarian societies, and they suddenly find themselves entrapped in the urban system, which is completely different in a completely different country. This is very important to find job for people, or to find a way to create opportunity for those people to get immersed in the European society. Finally, there is the problem of loss of human capital. The problem is that in most of the cases, unemployment is considered a short-term problem. However, when we are talking about youth unemployment, the effects are coming later. European Union has attempted to resolve the issue by making a lot of policies about it. You see, technically from 2009 up to today, we have every year a policy. Barroso Commission, for example, started by saying by 2020 we will reduce the poor people of the European Union to 20 million. Of course, he will never succeed to see this program happening because of the rigidities of the financial crisis. But the persistence of the macroeconometric indicators regarding youth unemployment led us to a European youth strategy in 2009 and 2010 voted in the parliament, and a new initiative later, Youth Opportunities Initiative. And then we had systematized our view by stressing the need for more concrete and active policy, given the fact that unemployment is national competency. It is not a competency of the European Union. Youth Unemployment Initiative is a flagship program sponsored by the European Social Fund, which has the Youth Employment Package and the Youth Employment Initiative. The most important thing regarding this program is the Youth Guarantee, well known. Technically, it says that all young people under 25 will find a good quality of job, apprenticeship, stage, or another education opportunity of good quality 4 months from leaving formal education or their last job. And this is the time of passion for us in the European Union, because practically this never worked. The Youth Guarantee, Youth Guarantee has a huge problem. When we decided Youth Guarantee, the concept was to make governments to create structures so as to accompany people, young people, in a transition from education to a job, or from one job to the other, and establish a career pattern. However, the way this funding was used by the member states, who have the competency of doing that, was exactly the opposite of what it meant. Instead of using the funding to create those structures, they used it as a fiscal assistance to companies so as to hire few people. You get this job for 3 months, the funding is ending after 3 months, you're out. That's all. But the problem is that I don't think that it's just poor implementation of the policy from member states. Numbers speak again of themselves. Well, the funding for the youth guarantee was 6 billion euros. For 6 million young unemployed in European Union, it equals 1,000 per unemployed. And because it was for 2 years, it was 500 per unemployed. Peanuts. ILO suggests that what European Union needs in order to create these necessary structures is 4 times what they invested. 21 billion. But still, nobody wants to pay this money in the short run, first because everybody wants to escape from this thing. And this is very interesting because we, as European Union, guarantee and save banks in a total amount of approximately 2 trillion euros, trillion, 2 with 12 zeros, and we do not pay 21 billion to assist young people. Technically, in the consideration of us in the European Union, youth is not too big to fail. We don't care to pay more money now. The other very interesting thing is that we are already openly speak about youth unemployment scandal. Even the TV channel of the European Union speaks about youth unemployment scandal. The other thing I would like to stress is that everything is about skills. Unfortunately, we are equalizing diplomas with skills. I was about to tell you a personal story about it, however, my moderator is very strict on that. If you can convey him, I can tell it, so as to be a little bit illuminating. But since this summer, European Union focused less on theoretical things and more about skills. What should be done? We don't believe that we are going to solve the issue in 2 or 3 years. To be frank, if somebody is serious about growth and jobs, he creates growth and jobs. If somebody wants to have a resolution of something, he's going to bring a resolution on something. I don't think necessarily it's a failure of market, but it is the persistent failure of Homo politicus to act on basic things as Homo economicus. We believe that building social partnerships between people and firms is the very essential first step. However, just dealing on the subject in the governance level of national competency is not enough to solve the issue, especially now with all these fiscal constraints of the member states. We need a higher level of coordination, and we need to incorporate all this attempt for resolving youth employment problem within the structures of a more harmonized common fiscal policy. My proposal is to incorporate this thing in the European semester, which is the vehicle for further fiscal union within the European Parliament, and to include it with country-by-country recommendations on the unemployment policies. And last but not least, I believe that ECB should incorporate in its mandate the need to target an unemployment rate. This is the technical thing. I was about to speak 2 more hours, but no problem. We can do it later. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dimitris. Well, at the beginning you said never trust an economist who starts with a chart. But always trust an economist who uses more time than is at his disposal, because this shows his competency. Now, the next speaker I would like to call to our stage is Felix Marquardt. And actually, when he was a child, he always wanted to work internationally. So I was asking myself, well, where does this come from, that a person is not focusing really on one topic or one profession, but just has this idea to work internationally? And if I'm not mistaken, and maybe Felix will then tell me this is true, he has German, Austrian, and American background. So basically, working internationally for him is in his nature. And today he's here as the founder of the Al-Kawakibi Foundation. And previously, he worked as a consultant, a strategy consultant for international relations for government and for individuals. And he will be speaking about to us, governments underestimate the value of their younger generations. We need to act up. Felix, yours the stage.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thanks for, first of all, Rens, thanks Petra, thanks to all the organizers for this wonderful event. I'm really, really pleased to be here. You mentioned a few countries among my origins. I'm actually, my dad is German, from a family in Silesia, which is present-day Poland, was born in Germany, grew up in Vienna. My mom is American from the Bronx, but she's the daughter of a Greek immigrant and a Hungarian immigrant. And I was born and raised in Paris, where I flew from this morning. So yeah, international is indeed part of the DNA. I didn't bring a presentation, not because I'm lazy, but because I want you all to go and check out the website of that I've just devised. I've spent a lot of time on it. Actually, I have a number of hats, different hats, and there was some confusion, I guess, in this in the way I was presented just now. Actually, I founded a foundation called Al-Kawakibi a little bit less than a year ago after the Charlie Hebdo terrorist attacks, but actually what I'm here to speak about is a movement and an index that I just started called Youthonomics. The genesis of Youthonomics is quite simple. 3 years ago, as I said, I was born and raised in France. 3 years ago, I started a movement in France called Barrez-vous, which can be translated in English as scram, leave. I don't know how you would say it in Spanish, but in German it would be haut ab. There's a number of other translations. So basically, scram, leave. If you want to say it in a more vulgar way, just imagine. I won't say it here. But so the idea of this movement was very simple. France has now had, as was very wisely depicted just now, Europe as a whole has a problem with youth unemployment, which on average is double the figures of normal employment. In some countries like Italy, it's actually 3 times as many people among youth that are unemployed than among the rest of the population. I was at the time, 3 years ago, looking only at the French situation. And the French situation was that it's been now 35 years in a row that youth unemployment in France has hovered around 25+%. And the only thing that French kids had been doing up until then, most of the time, was just marching. The French have a very good aptitude to march and protest. And they were doing this a lot between various Parisian landmarks, but with little impact on the decisions of policymakers. The basic idea of my co-signatories and I, when we launched this movement, was to say, if the French, and I mean, of course, the French politicians, the political elites, if they are not willing to understand that they need their youth more than their youth needs them, you know, to paraphrase Kennedy, well, maybe it's time that young people start thinking in France, start thinking about going to see what opportunities they can find elsewhere that they cannot find in France. Because, you know, at the end of the day, I would, to paraphrase Kennedy, who said once that, you know, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Well, in many countries, your country's not doing much for you. So maybe it's time that you look at what the world has to offer out there. Of course, this annoyed a lot of people in France. The French don't like to think of their land as one of emigration. And so I was accused of being anti-patriotic. I was accused of being anti-French. Now, I was expecting to be accused of such things by the likes of Jean-Marie Le Pen and his daughter, but I was not expecting that people from the business elite would say things like that. And I remember I had a conversation with the head of a big multinational company who told me, you know, the French kids who stay, they are the résistance. They are the résistance. So, you know, that lets you understand what she thought of the kids who left. So because I was accused of all these things, I just decided, well, what's the best way to prove that actually my beef, my problem, is not with France. It's not with the French. It's with anyone who, you know, doesn't allow young people to flourish. Not because I don't think that this is about, you know, being nice to young people. This is about like being nice to ourselves as a whole. For me, catering, allowing young people to flourish and prosper is not being in favor of young people versus being in favor of older people. I think that societies that don't take good care of their older people are societies that are showing very dangerous signs of decadence. But I do think that there's something specific about taking care of young people that should be very, you know, specifically underscored. When in a family you have the patriarch who's 80 years old, passes away, everyone is sad, but it's part of the normal order of things. When a family loses a kid who's 15 years old in an accident, it creates a much, much greater trauma. And so we should be aware that young people need special attention. So I thought hard about what was the best way to disprove these people who were criticizing our movement, and I came to the conclusion that the best way to do that was quite simply to look at the conditions of young people on a global scale. And so I created a think tank called Youthonomics and a global index called the Youthonomics Global Index, which ranks 64 countries across 59 criteria to say which countries allow young people to prosper and flourish and which ones don't. Now, while there are some countries that do particularly well, and again, I haven't brought the rankings because I want you to go and check out the website, there are some countries that do really well, but the general tendency that is shown by this work that we've produced, and we've taken a year and a half with a number of economists from around the world to produce these rankings, is that there is a general callousness towards young people, and things are not going in the right direction. I'll mention 3 tendencies that I find particularly worrisome. We've found that in many of the richest parts of the world, there is a phenomenon that is appearing for the first time in history. Pretty much since we were hunters-gatherers, so in those parts of the world we're talking several thousands of years, save periods of famine, periods of plague, periods of war, there has always been a net transfer of wealth from the generation of the parents to the generation of the children. This is breaking down. In this country, we have seen people move back to their parents' place, and then the parents move back to the grandparents' place. So you have the whole family is now living with the grandparents because, quite simply, there's no other way to function. Now, this is completely unprecedented. And in the 20th century, there was a French philosopher, Franco-Lithuanian philosopher called Emmanuel Levinas, who talked about the importance of transmission. And he was talking specifically about the importance of transmitting culture and transmitting values. But what of the transmission of wealth? What happens when a generation figures out that they're not going to get anything, plus they're going to work to pay for pensions, which they will not in their own turn get? I would like to put out there the notion that we have been very much, we've heard a lot about the risk of a shock, of a clash of civilizations, of cultures, of religions in the 21st century, sorry. I think that we should start thinking about the risk of a clash decided because we giving the burden of it to pay back to our kids and grandkids and to people who basically are not yet born. They might get pretty angry. I would like to put it out there. Another tendency is that the financial crisis has actually made young people poorer on average, while it has made retirees richer. This is another item that I think is really problematic. The third that I'll just keep, that I'll mention before I move on to more positive things, there is a more positive message here, is that all young people in Europe are financing pensions. Everyone. Poor young people, rich young people, everyone's paying for pensions. But the way that the money trickles down from the senior generation to the younger generation is not mutualized. It's inside the family. So that means that we are reproducing inequalities that we purport to have overcome. Because basically, if you're poor, you're paying for pensions of poor people and rich people. If you're rich, you're paying, as a young person, You're paying for pensions of poor people and richer people. But if you're a poor kid, you're getting no money from your poor grandfather. And if you're a rich kid, you're getting loads of money from your rich grandfather. So this is something that we should really think hard about, because this is going to be a problem in the coming years. Now, what's this? So what do we do? Do we just cry all our tears and just go to some illusion, to some wonderland where we all find work and where things become rosy? No, but what we can do is, there is a way that baby boomers and the rest of society, our societies, can turn this vicious circle that's affecting young people into a virtuous one. Politicians don't care about young people because, well, you guys don't vote, or most of you don't vote, or less and less of you vote. You have no more money, and the financial crisis has made you the new poor. The new poor can be defined generationally now. It's a sad thing, but that's the truth. And the third thing is that, well, in many rich countries at least, you represent a shrinking part of the population. So why the hell, as a politician, would I bother to cater to your needs? Well, here's why. No country in the world can prosper without its youth. You have much more power in your hands than you believe and that they believe. If you begin to pack your bags and go to places where you find better opportunities, this will get the attention of politicians in your country. Now, I'm not saying everyone should just, pack their bags and go. I'm saying that the Youthonomics Global Index and other indicators, such as those that were mentioned by the speaker before me, we have to learn from best practices. There are ways that we can do things better in education, in employment policies. I'll mention a few things. In education, Finland is systematically ahead of most countries in the world on all the PISA rankings, etc. Yet, Finland has a cost per capita of education that is lower than most countries in Europe, and certainly of America. Now, maybe what we should be doing is looking at how, okay, I'm going to try to end fast, but this is not going to be easy. Maybe I'll talk about the conclusions maybe a bit later. I can speak to you guys one-on-one, but basically we need to look at best practices, and we need to ask our politicians to implement those that work, so that we can, get a better so that young people get a better, fairer chance at prosperity and flourishing. In my opinion, in the opinion of the economists that I've gathered around the think tank Youthonomics, young people are a bit like migrants. I know this is a provocative way to put it, but this is what I fiercely think from the bottom of my heart. This refugee crisis that we are seeing unfold in Europe has shown something quite unforeseen. For the first time in history, it's not countries selecting their migrants, it's migrants selecting their countries. They don't want to come to France. They don't want to stay in Italy. They don't want to stay in Greece. They want to go to places where they can get work. They want to go to places where they think they can get a better life. Exactly the same way, in the coming years, young people will flow to the places where they can have jobs and where they can have opportunity. So it's time that we organize a big beauty contest of countries around the world, not just in Europe, so that the countries that give young people the best chance to prosper and success and flourish get the best youth. It's as simple as that. So it's up to us to organize the beauty contest. And for me, the best way that we can get this beauty contest organized is by all lobbying in some form or fashion for our governments to accept the notion of a global youth work visa that allows people under the age of 25 to work for 2 years in any signatory countries as long as they're part of the quota. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Felix, also for your last, let's say, like big influence on the economy, but not only. And he is also publishing the World Employment and Social Outlook and the International Labour Organization, where he is actually the chief of macroeconomics. Ernst, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here, having us, the International Labour Organization here. And as a representative of the ILO, I wanted to greet the Youth Time Forum for this really important event. We obviously, as the organization, the UN organization that deals with employment issues, are very concerned about youth employment and welcome all these initiatives like the one that Julia and her co-workers are having put together as a very important, significant initiative in order to deal and handle youth employment issues in the world. Now let me give you some numbers. As Felix mentioned, as Thomas mentioned, I'm dealing with numbers all the time. So one of the things that I actually wanted to show you is a bit of background numbers here as well. I know that I'm running into this trap that Dimitri was just mentioning, that don't trust an economist who presents a chart. I do the same. And actually, I will start off with a map. So this map just shows you the evolution of the youth employment problem or unemployment problem in the world. As has been mentioned already before, we see these huge increases over the past few years. But when we look forward, actually, we don't see any improvement coming on over the coming years. Actually, the situation either stagnates or becomes worse over time. There are few exceptions in countries like Spain or Greece where youth unemployment rates will decline, but most of the time they will either stay stable or increase. And that is very worrying if you think about how important young people are for our societies, as has been mentioned just before. I want to also show you one additional twist to that youth unemployment problem, and that is not only we have young people who are out of a job, they're increasingly out of a job for long periods of time. What we have seen actually before the crisis is that young people often kind of switch jobs quite quickly, and that is one of the reasons why you see this high unemployment rates. They move between jobs that take up six months here, 6 months there, and in between they have always short periods of time where they actually don't work. Now, since the crisis, this is no longer true. Young people stay out of a job for a long time, sometimes 12 months, sometimes longer. And as you can imagine, if you're staying out of a job for that much time, or if you don't even have the chance to experience make a first experience on the labor market, that means any skill that you have acquired in your education is lost, basically, and you will not be able to productively increase your capacities, your competencies over time. So as you can see, this is in particular for countries like Spain in blue is particularly worrying that out of a sudden you have half of the unemployed in Spain are out of a job for 6, 12 months or longer. Now, one of the things that we look specifically is also to see the transition over time. So obviously these things build up, and you want to look a little bit of what are the transitions that young people do, what kind of different stages they pass through. And so you see actually the big yellow part is the one where young people are still in school, and that shrinks over time as it should be. So young people initially are most of the time still in school, and as they advance in age, they increasingly enter the labor market. Now here's an example for Eastern Europe. We have done statistics for across the world, and they look more or less the same. What is particularly worrying is that you see this purple and blue bars on the top of the chart. These increase with age. So the purple one is inactivity. So there are actually increasingly young people who are not in school and are not working, and they're not even looking for a job. So they're there waiting somehow that something happens, but it doesn't. Now you might see that certain people are sick, sometimes happens. People or young people might decide to stay out of the labor market, wait for longer. But you see that this proportion actually is not declining, rather increasing as age progresses. And even at the age of 29, or 20% of them are inactive. And in addition, you have these people who are actually unemployed, they do somehow look for jobs, but are not finding anything. So you have a large proportion here in Eastern Europe. At the age of 30, you have 1/3 of that age group that is not in a job and is barely looking at it, borderline, you can say. And that is obviously extremely worrying if you think about that these people eventually will end up without any chances to successfully enter the labor market. Now we have the statistics also broken down a bit more, and one of the categories that we are particularly concerned on is this called need rate. So these people are neither in employment, nor in education, nor in training, and they're actually not doing anything else than, well, basically unemployed or even inactive. And unfortunately, you can't really read it down at the bottom the country names, but you can imagine that towards the right of the chart, you see countries like Greece and Italy, where roughly 40% or almost 40% of young people are falling into these categories. So you have a huge part of this age group of 15 to 24 who are actually not doing anything for 35 years old. They're no longer considered to be young anymore. These people are moving back to their parents because they lose the first job that they had. They don't find anything else. They have no program, nothing for them to help them to survive, and so the time it takes to reach autonomy is increasing. Now this is an international comparison that has been done on the basis of our numbers, and you see that one of the worst performing regions in the world is actually quite close to Europe, which is in the Middle East and North Africa. In these regions, we already see that it takes almost 30 years before young people have successfully reached some degree of autonomy, and it's not surprising that we actually see a lot of these people trying to migrate, come to Europe in the hope, probably these days relatively vain hope, to find better conditions than they have in their countries of origin. A more worrying trend I find is not so much the fact that you have reached a state, or it takes longer to reach autonomy, but it's also that young people are vocal. They express themselves, maybe not in the way that we would like them to express. It has been mentioned already that political participation is declining, but they do express themselves. And one of the ways you measure this is through social unrest indicators. You have different ways of measuring this, basically, but we try to identify a bit across the world the different degrees through which young people express themselves in a more or less violent manner. Now you can see that there has been periods, this is for different regions on the world, and when you look on the top you see the global indicators, and just underneath the indicator for developed economies. You see that surprisingly actually for developed economies it has been rather stable over the recent years. Outburst of same for North America. The only exception is maybe African countries, where there is some continuous increase in the labor force. But at the same time, and that's indicated by these columns, you see an increase in skills mismatch. So actually employers have an increasing difficulty to find the right people, to find the proper applicants for the vacancies that they have. So that is somehow curious to see that on the one hand, you have employers complaining continuously and increasingly that they cannot find the right workers. You look at surveys around the world as a continuous complaint, maybe with the exception of African countries. But at the same time, youth unemployment is high. So something doesn't work there properly, and somehow we need to find solutions. And one of the topics or the themes that I want to bring forward, and I think that's very much in line with this Youth Time Forum, is to say that besides policy actions or besides actions undertaken by countries, there is also a way that the business side, private initiatives can contribute to solve that. Now let me look at some of the elements. We have mentioned, it has been mentioned before, about the failure of certain policy initiatives to actually address this issue. Now one of the things that I want to show here with this chart is that in the past, countries have always been recommended to do more active labor market policies, so activate people, trying to give companies some tax breaks, train people better, sometimes even beef up your public employment services, that your job counseling gets better, etc. So this is basically indicated on right side of the chart that you have countries trying to increase the spending on these items, and they seem to be working relatively well in terms of job creation, at least in the short term. What hasn't been done properly, and this especially with the crisis, is we actually need to support young people in their strive for autonomy. Now, one thing you do that is through unemployment benefits. The other one is, as Dimitri was mentioning, is this youth employment guarantee. But you need to put the money behind it. You increase in youth unemployment rates available for young people.
People are out of the street and
the elder gentleman. And why? Because, you know, we are not producing enough funds to support everyone who is in need. So the meaning of the social state should not be persistent nowadays, and we should think that everyone is able and provided with the possibility to obtain proper education and after to find proper occupation and to create his or her own source of further prosperity. Everything in your hands. There are a lot of political slogans of that kind. You are the possessor of your fate, nobody else. Everything open, everything possible. I will try to show that is not. I'm trying, okay. Yeah, okay. To show you something. You already saw this, and I'm not staying on that. Okay, maybe just to remind you that there are a lot of newcomers to European Union, the countries where the youth unemployment is much higher than in so-called old countries of Europe. But what I would like to show you in terms of generation, look at this slide. And you clearly see that the rate of unemployment for the younger generation is much higher than the same rate for gender part of the society. That is the reflection which already was announced here. And we know that that is true. Whatever slides you take, the previous three, two, or you know this one, it is clearly showing something is deadly wrong about the composition and about the politics of policy, economical or internal policy among the countries. And there is no difference. You can take EU, you can take Russia, you can take, you know, Arab countries, you can take even America, where the situation is a little bit more better. But everywhere you will see to some very strange situation. We were talking about education. You got the best education, you got the best possibilities, etc. Look, two countries, education, congratulations that you sustain. Next, just a month ago, in Rose, we had 13th Forum of the Dialogue of Civilization. The most important session, this time, the plenary session, was devoted to the questions of the model and algorithm of the development of global economy. Listen, no one will challenge the situation and the statement that the economy is global now, world globalized. Check your pockets, you find the same telephones, doesn't matter from where you came. But on the other hand, when we see those rates of unemployment, how the economy, how the society can be sustainable if the society does not want younger generation. How the mankind can be sustainable if we do not have or would not have kids who will become younger generation. And the explanation that, you know, the mankind is aging, and, you know, younger generation representatives should feed the pensioners, and that is not fair. That is not true. Because nowadays pensioners, when they were young, they did the same for the society. That is exactly, you know, the interaction between the generations. Then why? Because, you know, in 60s, Roman Club declares that the growth of the population will reach the amount in, at that time they were talking about 2025. The amount of the population which the earth is wrong. And he changed it to be oriented not on the clash of the civilizations. And when I asked the representative of the United Nations how they are going to reach, for example, the target, everyone should have a pure water for life. He said, yes, we have this. And I said, what and where you take the resources? And the answer, do you know the answer was? We do not have additional resources. That is exactly with those money to provide young unemployed with some source of material support. That is not the case. To my mind, you know, the entire paradigm of neoliberal globalization is coming to prove inefficiency after more than 40 years of development. And the people, politicians, are now very much concerned with the question, what will be the next formula? So I finish with the statement that we should not concentrate on some very small particular reasons of young men and ladies' unemployment. But we should concentrate on collaboration, cooperation. We should demand the governments, the politicians, not to introduce very beautiful, you know, proposals without any possibility to check what will be after, even, you know, if it is the next round of election. And of course, it is absolutely essential that during the forums like that, you are obtaining not only the facts and knowledge from the speakers, which you very wisely invited. I am not talking about myself, because if you not invite me, I would come anyway. But I am trying to attract your attention to the fact you should not wait when the politicians will come to you. It was said differently here, but I would like to enforce this. You should come there. You should find those who will understand you and who support you. In these terms, actually, you are responsible for your future, but not only your future. You are responsible for the future of those generations to whom you, very, very soon, will be elder generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite all speakers to the stage. Dimitris, Ernst, and Felix. I would like to thank once more to all of our guest speakers for their speeches and for the very interesting topics and points they raised. Now we have about 20 minutes more or less for questions and answers, and I would propose that we collect 2-3 questions. You address them to the speakers, and then the speakers can pick them up and answer them which they feel most comfortable, or where they think that they have a point to make and a value to add. So,
Guys can go on the front row because we've emptied the seats and they can use them.
yes, please just fill up the front row so that you can see also better the audience. And also for those who are following us on live stream, we'll try to use the microphone that you're always knowing what is going on and which questions are asked. So when you're asking the question, please make it short, make them spicy. Stand up, please, say your name, and ask your questions. Do we have already some questions for the audience? Do we have somebody with a microphone going around and giving the microphone to the audience?
Thank you so much. So my name is Álvaro Royo, I'm the Secretary General of Diplocat. Two short questions, 1 to 2 meters, if I may. You said full employment is not necessarily desirable. It sounds a bit shocking here in Spain with 21% of unemployment, 17% of unemployment in Catalonia. Could you please develop on this? And then a second question to Felix. Your proposal of global youth visa, that's very inspiring, but let me be a bit provocative. You're proposing to young unemployed people to leave. Isn't that too easy? Isn't that the easiest way? Shouldn't young people try to change the system from the inside? Once the country has been investing on them, on their education, shouldn't they first try to change the system from the inside? Getting involved into politics before deciding to leave, which is always a possibility, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's collect some other questions in front row.
Thank you. Adi Kolasevic, Youth Time Ambassador. I have posted some questions on the meeting applications, so I don't know how it will be transferred maybe to the speakers, but one of the questions is maybe to Psakiris, but to all of you, mentioning the high employment rates, but is there any correlation with, let's say, higher education, as you mentioned also that higher education students are mostly unemployed, in a sense of... Okay, but generally there is overflow of higher education students. But is there any kind of connection with the fact that the higher education area in Europe is like still in this kind of industrial concept of work? So it cannot keep the pace of fast-moving, let's say, economies or businesses. So maybe is that the case?
Thank you very much. Last question.
My question, hello, I'm Ekaterina Kuznetsova, European Youth Press. My question is addressed to Mr. Ernst. I cannot see, okay, here. You mentioned that there is a way to involve private businesses into helping young people. So what can be major tools and mechanisms of incentivizing these private businesses? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please, who would like to pick up the question? Who would like to start?
All right, so I'll start by trying to answer your question. I think said, let me be provocative, and I'll try to not be too provocative in my answer. I think you're right. I think that this is not about either you leave and you find happiness elsewhere, or you stay and you struggle and you're a true patriot and you're good to your country and you give it back. I think that actually that sort of opposition is becoming senseless. I think that often to prosper in your own land, you first need to leave. I don't think that leaving is sort of an answer in itself, and I personally have found it, you know, I'm not French, but I grew up in France, and I see that I discovered the Frenchness that I have in me when I left. I never listened to French music before I left for several years. And then I started listening to Jacques Brel. I started listening to various French pop bands and whatever. So I think like the importance of this youth visa and the importance of leaving is one of the virtues of it is actually to rediscover that where you're from and what you like about it. And often in I would argue like Europe is Europe feels these days like things are really complicated because while most countries in the world, most places in the world are still increasing the quality of their lives, in Europe it feels like we're stagnating or we're decreasing. But we're basically a bit, spoiled in Europe. That's the reality. For the past 500 years, white men from Western Europe and North America have presided over the destinies of the world. They've decided pretty much everything. And now they are no longer alone at the top of the hill, and they have to accept the fact that, well, there's other people who want to eat. We live in a world where the 75 richest people have as much wealth as the poorest half of humanity. As long as we live in a world like that, people are going to be migrating. So I agree that it's important to try to change the system from the inside. And I think that actually what I put into question is whether, I want to even question the notion of here and there. Is a good Catalonian a person who lives in Catalonia? Or is it someone who eats Catalonian, reads Catalonian, breathes Catalonian, and represents Catalonia all around the world? There's 2.5 million French people who live outside France. The French people inside France tend to think of them as second-class citizens. Oh, you've betrayed our country. You're no longer with us. You are, you've betrayed France. I would argue that actually French people who live outside France are often the best ambassadors of France. So for me, the question is, what is it to be an American, to be a Swede, to be a Bulgarian, to be a Catalonian? I don't think it necessarily means that at a moment, a moment T, you are living in that country. I think it's something a bit more conceptual and broad and linguistic and cultural, etc. That means it. So I agree, it's not one or the other. And I sure hope, frankly, that no one, what I would prefer is for politicians to take into account the necessary changes that need to be implemented so that less people have to leave. But I feel like when young people feel caught in a trap, they should remember that, when our grandparents wanted to migrate, it cost, when my parents moved to Paris in 1972, this was a life-changing decision. This was, this was it. And actually, they are still in Paris. These days, if you want to go and try to figure out whether you can function in Buenos Aires or Shanghai, you can do it for less than 1,000 euros. Now, I'm not saying that everyone can do it very easily, but I'm saying that it's easier than it has ever been.
Thank you very much for this answer. Dimitris, do you want to answer?
Well, can you listen to me? Okay. Well, first of all, I'm not a labor economist, Roy. I'm a financial economist. So I view some things not necessarily in the politically correct way. And I express myself in this politically incorrect way as well. Speaking about full employment, reminds me the well-known Taylor curve, which says simply that the lower the employment rate, the higher the interest rate. Higher interest rate is, by definition, a disincentive for investing for growth. There are also higher risk premiums. We have to deal with it. And the best policy thing to do is to find the correct balance between interest rate and unemployment rate. If I may make a political comment, which comes from 1940s, when Keynes employed this model of full employment, saying that, look, my Britain, during the war, everybody had a job. Hayek replied, everybody had a job, but the plates were empty. Full employment, more or less, historically speaking, is accompanied with poor countries. And a recent example of a full employment state is North Korea, for example. I'm afraid that the most important, in order not to fool ourselves, is to find the correct balances. And if we need to address something, it's not necessarily the unemployment problem per se, but the unemployment caused by structural causes. There are several kinds of unemployment. Ernst may be more detailed than me on that. There is structural unemployment, there is cyclical unemployment. Cyclical unemployment, to some extent, is necessary to clear the market. What we need to do is to help, to assist people facing themselves out of employment temporarily because of cyclical fluctuations to reach a new job or a new career path as soon as possible, without marginalizing them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dimitris. Eckhard?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to actually combine my answers to these two questions on education, on private sector initiatives. First, on the education front, I think that the challenge that we have, and you mentioned, and that was brought up, is not only limited to these two countries. And it will be increasingly becoming true that in the future, if our education systems do not adjust to technological changes we're currently seeing it, we will actually see rising unemployment not only for high-skilled people, but even this intermediate skilled group of young people will increasingly face labor market problems. Now, one of the things I mentioned in my talk was that private sector initiatives, and I think that this is the kind of forum where some of you actually have these types of ideas, are very important to provide maybe the right environment for young people to understand how to search for a job, what kind of additional training they might need, but also to feedback information from the businesses into the school system in order to allow school curricula to be adjusted. Maybe even to offer alternative school curricula through private sector initiatives, private schools, private high schools, private universities, etc. There are thriving numbers of initiatives in this area, and I think this is certainly something that governments need to support. Now, that's exactly the point. Most governments actually do not see the need to do that because they consider, well, we're already spending so much money on our public system, why should we support the private sector? And I think that one of the key functions that this type of forums should have is also promote advocacy into the public sector, into governments, and saying, well, these are useful initiatives for young people to actually get the education that's relevant. Most of the education that you get in the public sector is today actually not relevant and often is taken up not so much for the education itself, but as a device, for instance, to enter public sector jobs. Greece is one of those examples where young Greek people take a lot of education, not because they like the education itself, because they think afterwards they can get a job in the public sector. So I think that this forum should also take up an advocacy role, saying, well, we need to maybe use some of the public money and support private sector initiatives for better and more relevant training.
Thank you very much, Eckhard, for your answering. Vladimir, please.
The question concerning the link between the nowadays model of global economy and the demand for specific kind of education is absolutely correct in the base. Because post-industrial world paradigm meant that the industrialization era finished and the world came to post-industrial, where the knowledge is the utmost important substance of the capital. But you know, somebody forgot that you know, to feed up the brains, one should eat bread, for example, and the bread should be produced somewhere. Then you know, to drive a beautiful car, to come to the think tank, somebody should produce the car. And now we observe the era of reindustrialization. It was, you know, stated by Cameron, for example. It was stated by Obama. It was stated by other politicians. So from this point of view, I suppose the demand will shift from the demand for advocates or lawyers towards engineers again. At least we observed that in, for example, Russia and other countries. But that is not only the point. As I said, we devoted a lot of time to discuss the possible features of the new paradigm of the development of mankind and the global world. Felix mentioned figures, but I would like to add even more figures. 400 billionaires earn the earnings which is equal to the earnings of the half of the population of the world. 1% of the most rich people possess 99% point something of the global wealth in terms of actives. 1%. In such kind of paradigm, we never reach any kind of equality, and we never reach any kind of the free development. So there is something strong, and Dimitris mentioned the word structural. I would say systematic problem, crisis of the existing model. Inevitably, it will change. In the history, unfortunately, we observed the changes of the paradigm through the most devastating world wars. God bless us that this time our politicians, our leaders, will be more wise than the predecessors to find the way how to squeeze between Sil and Charybd without putting the world into this kind of pattern of changing of the paradigm. And I also would like to mention that this orientation of post-industrial orientation of the world brought the layers of the society to some unproportions. In Russia, the biggest layer of civil employees are those who are controlled. Special services, controllers, etc. In the amount, they are bigger than, you know, accumulated figure of Russian army and railways. Because railways was 1.2 million employees and army is a little bit less than 1 million. So controllers in numbers much bigger. You know, I don't know the figure. Maybe somebody is here from the United States or know the figure. I suppose in the United States, maybe not in numbers, but the most influential layers of the societies are financiers or financial oligarchs and lawyers, not engineers already. So the change of the paradigm will inevitably bring a new demand for new professionals. So that possibly could be the outcome of the stagnating system of global education. When I'm talking global, we have countries with much better education and worse education. But I'm talking, you know, generally, so the demand for the education should also be equal. Because, you know, Bolognian system and the American system of education, if we are talking about public schools and private schools, those different system of educations. And because of that, the starting possibilities for the people with these, you know, educations are different also. So that is multiplying inequality among the different layers and different generations of the societies either. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm looking to the audience and I see already some people already answering some more questions, and I would like to invite you to ask them during the coffee break, because right now, on the one hand, we will have a group picture, so I invite every one of you to go to the front of the hotel. For our speakers, the press is waiting, so if you're willing to give some statements to the press and then join us for the group picture, would be very nice for you too. And after this, we have the coffee break, where you're all invited and to continue the dialogue and ask you questions. And reconvene here, please, at 11:25, because at 11:30 we start punctual with the next working session. Thank you to our speakers, thank you to everyone for this first session.
females are feeling about the menstruation, what is their understanding about it. So in a very radical statement that we got to know, many of them said that menstruation is a disease. Those conversations to nurture 32 young entrepreneurs, and more than 60 people have gone into development space full time. And there's been a thriving environment that we have been able to create. And so this is with the presentation. If there's any question you want to ask around that.
I think questions later. We're stuck with the time. Thank you very much, Prakar, for your presentation. I'm sure there's then time to discuss it later on with after the presentation, so that people get also your knowledge and your expertise in being, first of all, a winner and also in implementing the project. Now I would like to call Evgenia to the stage to present her project. Because she was one of the winners too, and she can also tell us about her experience with Youth Time and what she brought to Youth Time and vice versa.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank Youth Time International Movement for their contribution to the ongoing educational and employment reform through an exchange of international experience, expertise, ideas, goals, best practices, offering an amazing platform for discussion of educational and youth employment perspectives here in Barcelona. I'm grateful and honored to have had the chance to participate in previous Youth Time activities. I took part in the Indian Rhodes Youth Forum in Dubrovnik Summer School and a essay competition organized by Youth Time magazine. I'm proud to be a part of Youth Time family and share my experience with you. As the presentations delivered previously have extensively and excellently covered the topic, the new era of employment and education solutions for change. It's not only a title for our forum, it's also a motto that creates a team spirit when values and objectives are shared. I ask myself how interaction of nothing but the changes putting forward individualism and flexibility do not concern such important objects as participation, courtesy, and solidarity of those who are studying. Between pure learning and practice, between the development of capacities and the acquisition of practical skills, there is an anachronism that should be overcome. In the era of globalization, societies cannot afford the cultivated minds, irrelevant skills, the lack of interest and indifference to the social problems. Therefore, I advocate 4 points I believe are crucial. Skills that are truly relevant today, I enact a mix of policies and measures to be put, such as an investment in education and training, policies to support greater labor mobility, job and housing balance, further strengthening of incentives to work, and encouragement of equality of opportunities. Labor market flexibility forces employees to upgrade their qualification levels and be faster than the capacity of the employers to fully utilize these skills. This means that government have to look inside the dark room of the future and develop a range of civil support that encourages the identification, dissemination, and function of the best practices. The decision-making and governance process must involve governments, research institutions, educational institutes, companies, NGOs, and youth organizations in a proper collaboration process where essential roles has to have cooperative infrastructure. Although the case studies are different in terms of institutional architecture, the crucial point is that the weaker party, a younger worker, has to be market-ready, career-integrated, and social-driven, and protected when education and market reforms are introduced. Developing education forward, one has to think how a tradition meets reform that holds out the olive branch. And we're here not only to wait for the change and innovation, but participate and create. Today, American and British academic principles with Central European educational traditions. Students from more than 60 countries, different backgrounds, experiences, and aspirations, international faculty trained at Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Stanford, Berkeley, and Cambridge, interact on a daily basis to learn and to teach, to run their projects and to experiment, to explore, and to invent. During the forum, we will discuss a variety of topics: education and economy of knowledge, globalization and international education, teaching and learning, good traditions, digital education, creativity, interactive teaching, multimedia and hypermedia teaching resources, e-learning, civic education and leadership, academic exchanges and mobility. Barcelona Youth Forum will help us to find the innovative solutions, fuel our enthusiasm and passion for new ideas and experience. Together we are all different, but our motives should be united. And if you are looking for a platform to continue your research, to network, to run your initiative, or to change the world after Youth Time Forum in Barcelona, there is no better place than Anglo-American University in Prague.
Thank you very much, Evgenia, for this passionate speech about the Anglo-American University. Now, this is exactly what we need, so I would like to have Prakhar and you once more up on the stage, asking you some questions. So please, Prakhar, Evgenia, if you can come up once more. Just have a seat, and so we can chat a little bit more, because we are interested in talking to you and getting to know about how Youth Time actually changed your life. Like, what was before the project? You won the project. What's now? So, what's the impact of this experience Youth Time helped you to make?
What we are trying, and then I think this was the first platform where someone truly understood what we are trying to do. So I think it has changed a lot within the organization. So I would say a big thank you to Youth Time. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Another question maybe. How did you win? Like, we have now lots of participants here, and all of them want to win. And there are 5 prizes in total. So what would you like to give them on their way? Like, what is crucial? Because after this session right now, we are opening the challenge, actually, and then it's your task to come here to the stage, to present the project, and also to fight for the project. Because in the end, the audience here will be voting for your project. 5 projects will be shortlisted, and the experts who are coming right now will then select what fits best for whom. So there, as I said, there are grants, there are internships, and so on. So basically, it's then up to you to convince the audience and each other which is the best project. And here, you should be also honest to yourself and see, okay, this person maybe elaborated the project better than I did, or vice versa, I did something better than this person, and I can teach this person something. Because at the end of this Youth Time Forum, you should all go home and say, well, it was very useful for me, either because I won a grant, or either because I learned how to win the next time. So the question to you maybe, what is crucial to win?
If you wish to win, you need to have clear goals and open heart, and that's it, and you'll win.
Yeah. So first of all, I am excited about this Anglo-American University, this course. So I don't know, I would like to present again so that this 6-month course can be an interesting thing. So when you shared it, so I was saying, oh, I should have presented this year again so that I can go and study and take some good advantage from the professors in the university. But yeah, on a serious note, like you said, being honest to yourself and then expressing what you really want to do is something which worked for me last year. And I would say the entire context of the idea that I shared was in sync with many who were sitting over there, because we all have gone through that college, university.
Also to you, what's next?
And also
Youth Time maybe. And
she was attracted by values created the following issue, not only examine their own.
Then the LinkedIn, all
relatively very centers. Well, microfinance is the individuals who have some kind of make some profit and profits and incubation center.
Questions. Who of
India and how this project is relevant due to materialism and simple presentation, and it will be help them with we are trying why we doing this, why artisans, like there are a lot of middlemen and into 3 things. One would be the trainer, artists and artisans. We're gonna have back.
you get now questions.
advices sometimes on what.
Thank you very much. Maybe some.
And if not, we're going to extend.
Potential. However, companies are not doing this. They want to strive for with the minimum of a connection with
Market share you target. What do you?
For jobs,
Project in the youth society.
Managed by the rules some or the other way.
People have.
students that already.
Second question.
The artists and the organizations who are ready to help me with the training and the workshops. I am talking to people who are marketing experts who are ready, initially who are ready to give me that support, and then probably the selling of the products, the reaching out to customers, the socialites and everything. I think I'll be getting what I want to.
Do you have some more questions for the moment from the experts? So if the experts have no questions, we open the floor to the audience. Actually, Ashita has still some time left to present some more projects. Nihal as well, Dushko and Nadezhda are already close to the limit. So maybe first questions to Ashita and Nihal. Anyone? Yes, please. Wait.
Hi, I'm Anupa and I'm also from India. Ashita, okay, the clay life. I personally liked your project a lot and we are from the same city. So I wanted to ask you two things. Firstly, which area are you going to focus on? And secondly, you're looking at the supply side, but what about the demand side? You know, like what will be your target audience? Whom will you focus on? Because let's be a bit frank, you know, all handicrafts and, you know, decorative pottery, not everyone is going to buy them. You know, if someone is from a higher class, maybe they will buy it for decorative purposes, but someone who's from the lower class, why will they buy it? They would instead, you know, spend it on something else. So how do you intend to attract the right clientele and the right audience?
The first question, I've been working in Gujarat, the state of India, as a handicraft person, and I know a lot of potters I've been in touch with. The pottery is been the important part of the handicrafts in Gujarat. So I think I'm going to start from Gujarat, the Kutch region, definitely. The second question is, who would be the target audience in terms of buying it? I think, the two important factors which I'm looking at is the pricing, works which are priced.
Nihal from Pakistan. So
Stability. They can success in the long. They make purses, bags, handbags.
Will you be using any such?
Okay, so
Please give us your feedback.
We have something, but we need you have the communications.
Well, do you think that by creating activities, we want to